Welcome to Dig Deep, the mining podcast. In this podcast, we go deep into mining news, hot topics, and live interviews with mining professionals and leading figures in the mining industry. Introducing your host, Rob Tyson, founder and director of Mining International and Mining International Executive, a leading global mining recruitment and headhunting agency.
Hi, mining community. Welcome back to another episode of the Dig Deep, the mining podcast. And we have a returning guest today who appeared back in 2021 and in 2022. So please check out those episodes after obviously listening to this. Bert Monro, who's the CEO of Cora Gold. They are an AIM-listed gold exploration company who are developing 2 gold assets in Mali. The company was founded back in 2012 with their primary flagship or their focus on their flagship operation, Sanankoro Gold Project in southern Mali, who are heading towards first production in the near future. Bert has a strong resources sector experience in Africa, having spent over 10 years at Hummingbird Resources in the senior management team. So has a great understanding of how to develop gold mining assets in West Africa. Bert's going to give us an update on the company and looking at the macro level since we last spoke, results of their drill program and funding of the next stage of the project. Bert, welcome to the podcast. How you doing?
Yeah, good, thanks. Nice to be back on. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, appreciate your time also. So for those that haven't listened to you or don't know you or haven't heard of you before, although I think most of our audience would have, I wonder if you just tell us a little bit about yourself and about your career.
Yeah, sure. Maybe, a bit of background, I suppose. I was actually, my dad was in the army, so grew up traveling all around the world. I was actually born overseas, but in a British military hospital. So technically, British passport holder. Went to university, didn't do a mining focused degree at university, and fell into the mining industry in a way in my very early 20s. I got introduced to Dan Betts, who's the CEO of Hummingbird, and got a job at Hummingbird literally on the ground in Liberia, and spent the first 2.5 years of my sort of career in the mining industry from my early mid-20s, living out in Liberia back in sort of 2008-9 time, when I guess Liberia was on a bit of a post-war boom at the time, and lots of people were getting down there to explore. And Hummingbird took on a great large land package in southeast Liberia, in Sanankoro County, what's now the Digby Gold Project, 4 million ounces plus of gold. So I spent the first 2.5 years cutting my teeth, helping manage drill programs, field camps, community relations projects, and just sort of getting, I guess, fully immersed in the mining industry. I guess almost like a kind of an apprenticeship, I guess is probably the best way to put it, where I was living in an exploration camp pretty permanently, helping out anywhere I could to kind of help things and get things moving. So great to sort of help see what geologists are doing on a day-to-day basis for a long period of time, as well as drill contractors. And obviously getting stuck into some of the more logistical and operational sides of things as well. So I guess that was my initial background. After Hummingbird IPO'd, I moved back to be based out of the UK and was in a corporate IR and business development role for Hummingbird for 6-7 years. Actually, probably a bit more, probably actually close to 8 or 9 years. And then I became CEO of Cora in January 2020.
Right. And I think in my introduction, I said you've got 10 years experience in the industry. I think you've got a lot more than that now. Obviously,
yeah, a little bit more than that. I'm getting a little bit older. I actually just joked with our PR advisors yesterday. I need to update my photo. I think I'm looking significantly older than the mugshot on the website, so I need to probably get that changed. Yeah, sadly.
Yeah. So I wonder if you can just give us a snapshot of obviously Cora Gold and the story behind the company.
Yeah, sure. As you touched on in the introduction, Cora was founded in 2012, founded by John Forster and Craig Banfield. Craig's still our CFO. John's got an amazing track record of making significant gold discoveries in West Africa. He's a geologist. For example, they discovered the Mako project, which is now run and operated by Resolute in Senegal, a very nice operating mine there. So he put together a package of licenses. And obviously it was running as a private company. And in 2017, when I was at Hummingbird, Hummingbird put certain non-core assets to Hummingbird into Cora. As part of that deal, Cora then ended up listing, and I at that time became a non-executive of Cora. So that was my link sort of into Cora. I was a non-exec for a few years, I guess, in principle overseeing the Hummingbird investment in Cora. So Cora really was focused on this very prospective window, essentially southern Mali, where there's a number of operating gold mines and also other large projects. You've obviously got, Resolute, you've got, there was Marilla, there's obviously big projects like Kalana, which is owned by Endeavour. You've got, now you've got Sanankoro and others. And then we also had a suite of permits, which is in western Mali and just over the border into Senegal and eastern Senegal as well, in what's called the Kenieba window. The Kenieba window has probably been the most prolific gold belt in Africa over the last 20 or 30 years. A number of absolute world-class mines in that region. That was really the focus, obviously doing early stage exploration. In 2019, we really homed in Sanankoro, and then through 2020, after I became CEO, we published a scoping study. 2021, we significantly increased the resources by 3 times, and then 2022, we published a feasibility study. So we've got a really strong-looking project at Sanankoro in southern Mali. It's an oxide project. It's got over 100 meters of oxide, so essentially it's a free-digging, high-recovery material, which obviously has lots of benefits around operating costs, lower operating costs. So that's our main focus. Obviously, I think we'll probably touch on it later in the interview. Mali's obviously been, unfortunately, in a position where they've had a permit moratorium in place since the end of 2022 while they put in place a new mining code. So whilst we've got conditional project finance lined up and we've got a build-ready project with a project team sort of in the wings, we haven't been able to get the final mining permit due to this moratorium. So we've actually allowed us to focus a little bit on our other permits. So we've got a permit in eastern Senegal, in that Kenieba window I mentioned, called Medina Fulbe. So we've just done an initial reconnaissance drill program on it over the last few months and had some interesting and exciting early results there.
Obviously, the name of the company, Cora Gold, clearly shows where your focus is obviously on. What made you sort of solely focus on gold? And what makes you really, I suppose, positives for gold looking in the future?
Yeah, well, I guess my entire time in the mining industry has been in the gold space. So I guess coming towards 20 years now. I guess ultimately Cora was focused solely on gold when I took over as CEO. That was what our permits were for, and that's what our experience, both sort of our geologists and everyone's been focused on gold. So very much I've been picking up the ball where John and Craig left off, and obviously trying to help drive it forward with the strategy supported by our shareholders who have been very good and very supportive of us trying to deliver the Sanankoro project and wider exploration success. I think on gold, there's obviously reams and reams of material you can read about the bull case for gold. I think clearly it's had a very positive trend over the last number of years now. It's as we talked today on Friday the 19th, it's teetering on the edge of $2,500 an ounce, which is near record highs, pretty much record highs. Not, I guess it has to be said, not an inflation adjusted record highs, but certainly in terms of absolute terms at record highs. So without trying to add yet more reams of discussion around gold to you, I think the anecdote I would give, which someone told me once when I was just sort of coming into the industry, back in Roman times, a senator would go and buy his very smart toga from the market, and that would basically cost him 1 ounce of gold. And if you look at today, if a very successful politician went to buy a nice expensive suit, $2,500 wouldn't be a million miles off potentially what that might cost. And I guess if you equate it back to money, think back to when you're at university or whatever, if you had 10 quid in your pocket, you could probably buy quite a few beers for that. But £10 now barely gets you a pint in central London, sadly. So I think the value of gold is clear to be seen there, and I think that's why it will always have such a strong impact in the market.
Looking at obviously the projects your company focused on, you recently released drill results from your project in East Senegal. What was the aim of the drill program, and obviously did you achieve what you set out to do?
Yeah, good question. This project's called Medina Fulbe. It's around a 200 square kilometre, give or take, permit in eastern Senegal. Goes pretty much up to the border in Mali. As I said, it's in this Kenieba window. A huge number of producing mines in that region. It's really very underexplored. It's had surface level exploration done, grab samples, some trenching, other things. So really this was a scout drill program, reconnaissance drill program, or whatever you want to call it. We used an RC rig. We were drilling 8 to 10 target areas on relatively short drill holes. So the average hole depth was 50 meters over the 2,000 meter program. So really, we were trying to test for mineralization and ultimately trying to find a mineralized system. Our geologists were absolutely over the moon with the results. We proved in a number of areas you had 50, 60 meter wide zones of mineralization. And it gave us a huge, I think 60% of the targets, 60% of the holes were in mineralization, and none of them ended in mineralization, sadly. So, if only they drill a bit deeper to see what's down there. But the aim of the program was to try and get as wide an area covered as we could with a relatively small number of meters. So in doing that, you had to make compromise, and ultimately it was drilling relatively shallow holes. As you'll know, often deposits, grade and widths get better with depth. So just finding that level of mineralization very near surface was very encouraging. I mean, our best hole was 10 meters at 4.5 grams a ton. Had a number of holes with 20, 30, 35 meter intercepts in them. So there's clearly a mineralized system there, which is exciting. I think obviously what's the next steps is really, is it an economic mineralized system? Can you get the consistency of widths and grades to produce an economic deposit on that project? And clearly from 2,000 meters, you're really just scratching at the surface. So I think we definitely achieved the aims of the program, which was to drill it, which we did. We did it safely, we did it on time and on budget, and obviously the outcome of those results were very promising. The majority of the holes hit mineralization, which obviously then gives you a huge amount more data to follow up with hopefully a more significant program in the future to test those mineralized areas further.
With your obviously core focus in Mali, what do you like about working in Senegal?
So Senegal has been a great country to work in. I mean, just taking our project specifically, there's a tarmac road to within 20 kilometers of the project. Obviously, a politically stable jurisdiction. It's got a politically stable, mining code, and it's got a lot going for it. And that's why you've seen a lot of companies develop assets there. You've seen a lot of mid-tier major companies look to buy assets there as well. So it's very much a very positive jurisdiction to work in. Obviously for us, our main focus has been in Mali, as you said. Obviously it's another Francophone West African country. So in terms of our team, the ability for our team, who are obviously predominantly Mali and French-speaking guys and girls, they're able to move between projects, and obviously that doesn't have any issue at all. So for us, they're neighbouring countries and has lots of operational advantages as well. But no, it's a good country to work in, and being pleased with the program and the outcomes.
Obviously, back to the projects in Mali and obviously the Sanankoro Gold Project. Obviously the memorandum on new mining permits, obviously introduced by the Mali government, obviously must be frustrating for you and obviously the company. How is Cora Gold navigating these regulatory, environmental, and is there any timeline in sight in which this is obviously going to be lifted?
Yeah, so just to go through the timeline on that moratorium on issuing new mining permits. So we published our feasibility study in November 2022. We published our ESIA a few months before that and received our environmental permit for the project shortly afterwards. So the permit is fully permitted from an environmental perspective. Did our ESIA to world standards and international standards and got the environmental permit. Obviously, subsequent to publishing our feasibility, unfortunately, the government decided they wanted to put in place a new mining code, which obviously they're right to do. And whilst they were doing that, they put a moratorium in place and issuing new permits whilst they were going to work through the new mining code. Obviously, it's taken slightly longer than all of us were hoping it might take. But I think over the last few weeks, there have been some significant developments. So since August last year, when they announced the new mining code, there hasn't been significant movement on it. But what's happened over the last few weeks, you've seen both the Council of Ministers and you've seen the President of Mali both sign through the new mining code into law. So all of the decree documents have now been signed. So those have been some significant steps, but ultimately for Cora, until the moratorium is lifted and we're able to actually start submitting applications for our mining permit, then that's ultimately what we're waiting for, and that's what we need to happen.
And once obviously the moratorium is lifted, what is the plan for obviously the Sanankoro And how does the other projects that you're involved in fit with your development strategy?
I mean, look, it's to obviously hit DRS and go as quick as we can, Rob. I mean, look, we've been, treading water. It's probably the wrong expression to use, but treading water for the last 18 months plus on the project. We've made lots of significant progresses during the moratorium. We've signed up a debt mandate agreement with Atlantic Finance. We've brought together a project team. We've run an EPCM tender process. So we've made good use of the time. But ultimately, it has been a frustrating period where we haven't made nearly the progress we should have made or could have made. The first steps ultimately we've got to go through what's called a reshaping exercise. So we ultimately we've got a series of contiguous exploration permits, and we need to cut into a shape of the new mining permit, and then obviously the other ground will remain as exploration permits around it. So we got to go through that exercise. It shouldn't take too long. We've been through it in the background during the moratorium with the government, but until the moratorium's lifted, we can't have that new permit area agreed. Then obviously we've got to submit our mining permit application process and go through the permitting application process. I mean, look, the best expectation on that timing wise is it used to take on average about 3 to 4 months to get a mining permit traditionally before the moratorium. Obviously, you've got a backlog where you've had the entire industry waiting. So I wouldn't want to give a guess in terms of how long that would take, but fundamentally our primary focus is going to be getting the permitting done as quickly as possible. Concurrently with that, you're obviously going to be looking to move our debt project finance agreements into a binding form concurrent with that. So obviously we can move into a fully financed position with a permitted project as quickly as possible. So got a lot of moving parts to get going with. Sadly, it's not going to be breaking ground straight away, Rob. It's going to be a period where you're going through permitting, going through financing, and obviously looking to move that all forward as quickly as possible.
And obviously talking about financing, how are things looking? And do you have, I suppose, what you need for mine development for Sanankoro?
Yeah, I mean, our cash position is good at the moment, so we've got plenty of funds in the bank to go forward over the next year or so. Clearly, we need to go through the mine finance to actually finance the project. So we've obviously got a $70 million debt mandate in place. We had the project capex in the DFS is $90 million. We had last year we raised around $20 million in a form of a convertible loan note, which was to convert into equity on closing the permitting. Earlier this year, we actually gave 85% of that money back to those loan note holders. We felt it was the right thing to do. Ultimately, we were in a period where we weren't able to get the permit, and it had gone on for a year since we took the convertible loan note money. So we converted 15% into equity, and we had all their verbal support that they'd be prepared to put that money back in when the permitting situation opened up. So that conversion of 15% into equities left us in a strong cash position, given we've obviously got a reduced cash burn right now while we're waiting to start development. So we've got a long line of sight in terms of our cash, and ultimately it will be about running as hard as possible at delivering project finance concurrent with and at the conclusion of getting the permit in place.
And I wonder if you can just tell us a little bit about the mining environment or mining or Mali as a country, and obviously we hear stories obviously through media, through publications around obviously West Africa and obviously security issues. I just wonder if you can just give us an update on the environment in Mali.
Yeah, I mean, look, I've obviously lived on and off and travelled frequently to Mali for over a decade now. So I've really enjoyed it as a country. The people are great. It's got a great music culture, good food, good cuisine. So probably not what people expect me to say first off the bat. Clearly, when you read the media, there are obviously various stories you're going to pick up, and there's obviously been negative stories related to Mali. I think it's very important to look at Mali as a country, and it's absolutely vast. So if you look at where the mines are very much in the south of the country or in the west. And a lot of the trouble you read about in the news and sort of the headline grabbing titles you might pick up on a Google alert or whatever, they are generally speaking, the vast majority of those are 1,000 kilometers to the north of Mali, which is obviously where there has been UN presence and obviously Mali military presence there, looking to improve security in the country. So unfortunately, yes, it's had bad press, and I understand why. But in terms of operating there, I fly into Bamako, jump in a vehicle, go around town, do meetings like I have over the last decade, go down to site and see the project. So in that respect, whilst there's the negative undercurrent, and obviously there have been certain instances which have been not very good. I think from my perspective, operating there, it hasn't changed significantly. And I think, as you can see, there have been a number of operators who have continued to push out very large gold production. Obviously, you've got the likes of Resolute, B2 Gold. You've got obviously Barrick there with all with big operations, sizable operations, and all of them have continued to operate through this period. So I think that's what I try and look to. Focus on the positives. A lot of operators have operated there very positively. They've had no issue operating there, having expats going in and out as much as they needed to, getting gold in and out, getting cash out. So I don't think there's been any issue around that. But clearly, you've always got to be mindful of security. Clearly, as a company and as a leader of a business, your number one focus is making sure your team are safe and secure and can operate in a safe environment. So clearly, that's an important factor that you've always got to consider. And every single weekly call I have with the team, security is a line item that we talk about and we discuss if there's any changes, anything we need to change in the way we operate to make sure we can continue to be safe and secure in country.
Yeah, certainly. And lastly, what's the outlook for the sort of short to medium term outlook for the next 6 to 12 months?
I think it's going to be really positive. Obviously, touch a bit of wood, but I think, as I mentioned earlier, it feels like you're getting movement in Mali around the permitting situation. In terms of, I'm hoping and think the moratorium will be lifted in the reasonably near future. Obviously, it's very risky making a prediction exactly when, but I think the movement you've seen with the decree documents being signed recently. I think clearly there's movement around permitting in country, and I think we'll hopefully see a positive development. So I think for Cora, having had a tricky 12-18 months in terms of waiting on news on this, I think it's very much getting close and coming near. So I'm really looking forward to the next 6 months. I think they're going to be an awful lot busier than the previous 6 months, and I think that'll be really positive for Cora as a company and hopefully for Cora shareholders as well.
Yeah, great. But thank you very much for giving us an update on Cora Gold. Obviously, wish you well with the permitting, but I suppose it's out of your hands at the moment. So wish you well, and hopefully that gets lifted, and hopefully your permits will be given over since I suppose when we before we speak again. So wish you well, and all positives around that.
Brilliant. Thanks, Rob. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. And also, if our audience wants to reach out to you, obviously, if they want to follow the story of Cora Gold, how can they go about doing that? What social media platform channels?
Yeah, sure. All the usual channels, right? So, I mean, obviously on our website, you can get links to whether it's emails or obviously all the social media stuff. Obviously, we monitor LinkedIn and Twitter, I guess, are the main in terms of social media. But obviously, you can also email us or whatever else, and it's all on the info page on our website.
Yeah, great. We'll include those in the show notes accompanying this, so for easy access. Well, thank you again, Bert. Appreciate your time, and hopefully you'll be on beginning part of next year with very positive news.
Brilliant. Thanks a lot, Rob. Cheers.
Thank you. Thank you for listening. Thank you for listening. Hope you enjoyed that episode. As always, please keep sharing these episodes far and wide with obviously people within our industry, but people outside of our industry also. Obviously, gold is an important commodity for its various uses, not just in jewelry, but obviously for the monetary system as well. So appreciate your continued support. And until next time, happy mining.
Thank you for listening. Remember to reach out to Rob via the show notes, and be sure to subscribe and leave a review. Until next time, happy mining, helping each other to improve the mining industry.